Alright, you convinced me to put off checking out Ash's Afterglow. What's up?
Well, with it being Halloween, I wanted to show you my costume for Scout. Since I have my own Max's Severed Head now, I decided to dress up as you.
Oh, that's flattering. So you got the Batter's Helm, the Airborne attire, the Zephaniah's Greeting. What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? What is
Do you love me now, Daddy?
I want to go home.
I messed up.
There is no better month than October, and there is no better holiday than Halloween. So Christmas, you can wait in your fucking corner while me and Kara articulate our favorite way to celebrate the orange-soaked season, Scream Fortress. Starting in October of 2009, before all 9 classes even got their individual updates, Scream Fortress provided a splash of spooky themes in both maps and cosmetics. From humble beginnings to literally being the only sizable update we get anymore, Scream Fortress is as integral to this game as any proper update you wish to name. So tonight, we will be going through what can be called the Valve era of Scream Fortress, that being the first 6 years of it. We will be looking back at the innovations, the style, and the bullshit that made these events arguably the most fun TF2 ever was. So don't get spooked, it's gonna be a hell of a ride. Our first spooky update is more of a testing of the waters before things got completely nuts. One map with a spooky variant, 2 themed hats, and pumpkin bombs? Are war crimes a feature, Rabbit?
They're like pre-planted sticky traps that you can take advantage of as any class.
They're pre-planted bullshit that I should probably remember where they are since their locations are preset. Anyway, Harvest is an interesting case. It's the only Scream Fortress map whose regular variation came out at the same time as its spooky one. I guess Mountain Lab also counts as this, but we'll put a pin in that for a moment. It's aight.
Harvest is a fine map. It's pretty small, but it's dense thanks to its verticality. The limited space is used well, and even though there are some long sightlines, any of them can be flanked with a bit of effort or vertical mobility.
Since the map already had an autumn-October vibe by default, its event variant is probably the least changed out of all the Scream Fortress maps. It's at night now, different skybox, and the area is littered with acts of terrorism and ghosts! These spooks looked at the stun mechanic everybody loved from the Sandman and went, I want that. Get too close to him and you ain't doing shit beyond being achievement fodder, which is how you got one of the 2 hats from this event. Remember when hats weren't the focus of a TF2 update?
Yeah, better times.
Not to diss the mildly disturbing Halloween mask, it has a different pattern for each class, which was cool at the time, and you got it by collecting crit candy from downed players.
So we should hate it because Crumpkins are bullshit?
Whatever legacy it could scrounge up paled in comparison to the king of all noob hats, the first piece of the free-to-play uniform, the Gastly Gibbous. This thing is a plague. No, really, the term used is a viral item that anyone gets when you dominate a player wearing it, which a lot of people were for a very long time. Once upon a time, getting hats was not the easiest thing to do in this game. A lot of grinding, a lot of luck getting a drop, a lot of money, so even something as drab and overused as the Gib was better than nothing.
It was also fun to wear it with the Pyrovision goggles and bronze dueling badge to fool people into thinking you were a free-to-play. Back when that was a novel idea. I haven't had as many accusations in a single game since.
That is a fucking feat. Oh, on the subject of the Gibbous, its original owner, Zephaniah Man, the spooky ghost, remember him, is the first proper instance of lore in TF2 history. Sure, we knew some backstory for the Mercs and some of their weapon acquisitions, but nothing about their benefactors and bosses. The update page had this hidden will you could read, which tells the story of how Zephaniah was dragged into buying large swaths of useless land by his sons, which ends up contextualizing the many maps that the players fight for in-game. The excursion that he didn't want ended up being Zephaniah's ultimate undoing due to disease. and in what is most likely a final spiteful take that to his bickering sons, in his will he entrusts them to share it, knowing that they won't and that they'll be fighting over useless gravel for the rest of their lives. This one piece of paper set the foundation for all the amazing lore that's in Team Fortress 2. Lore that would be greatly expanded upon future updates, and even other Scream Fortress updates. And it all started here. Scream Fortress 1 was a solid little piece of content to tide players over for the autumn season until the War update launched 2 months later. And its immense popularity meant a sequel the following year was inevitable.
Fun fact, the map for this year was originally an unfinished map from Valve. They held an art pass contest to have community members texture and decorate it. So the default and event variants were created independently by different mappers, and both ended up being added to the game. Valve probably saw the potential in both the Spooky Mansion and the Alpine Laboratory, and decided to include them both for the now annual Samhain Special and regular play alike, even though the art pass contest page implied there would be only one winner.
Would explain why Man Manor is a major improvement compared to Harvest Event aesthetically. This isn't just a mere palette swap, boils and goyos. You go from an alright laboratory to a gothic nightmare. A gothic nightmare that loses to its predecessor in terms of mechanical improvement. The real deal breaker is between points 1 and 2. The linear design of the map is helped by houses and shacks you can work around to prevent being buried under Dr. Mario pills. But this thin corridor has all of its openings on top of each other, like the most unenthusiastic orgy in the gravel pits. And it brings down the pace of the match real bad at times. It's a shame because point 3 is where the real magic happens. The titular manor itself has so many approaches and layers, it's among one of the best finales of a control point map. And that's even before getting into the real game changer that will be a part of every major Scream Fortress event from here on out, the boss battles. And we open with arguably the best one, in terms of inciting horror anyway. Brother, allegedly, to Zephaniah and enemy to anyone with a head, it's Silliest Man, aka the Horseless Headless Horseman, with 2 ends. It's pretty interesting even today to see how players react to Horseless's entrance each round. He's a nearly unstoppable force who shakes your camera when he's near and instant kills you the moment he swings his axe, regardless of where you're at when it lands. He dares players to get sidetracked from the objective lest you become his next victim. It's so much fun to punish people putting too much focus into killing him. Managing to do so gets you his headpiece, and doing so with a melee hit gets you haunted scrap metal. Limited to 1 per account, this medal can let you wield the horseman's weapon yourself as an Eyelander reskin, or, how I used it, getting an all-class skull helmet of 3 various tiers. I was lucky enough to get the highest tier and strangifying it.
Your fetishistic obsession with spiral horns doesn't mean the styles are tiered.
The fuck it doesn't! Anyway, since wing cosmetics are only going to get more prevalent from here on out, we'll only be going over the noteworthy ones. This is my nice way of saying that Scream Fortress 2's cosmetics are probably the most forgettable. But it doesn't stop the overall update from being a complete improvement over its freshman year. It was obvious from the new ideas on offer that they had nowhere to go but up. Aw shit, here we go. This is the first Scream Fortress update I played in when it was new, and it was pretty, cutthroat? Let me back up. A lot of Scream Fortress's cosmetics, specifically the single class masks, were collected by picking up a haunted Halloween gift that spawned randomly in Man Manor. I don't know if other hats dropped this way during that update, I couldn't confirm. These gifts could only be picked up by 1 and only 1 player at a time, and yes, it was very common for players to completely abandon the objective until they were found.
It was a good time to main scout, is what he's trying to say.
They were arguably more distracting than Headless Horseman himself. And that was just for more painted brown bags. Imagine now giving each class a unique and cool 3-piece costume, and put the gifts on a smaller, condensed map with even fewer hiding places? Oh, no imagination required, that's what happened. You can imagine how a total newbie at the time like me with a subpar laptop handled in getting these actual costume sets.
He sucked ass.
I sucked an unhealthy level of ass, yes. It doesn't help that I'm not a huge fan of Viaduct itself. I know you told me it was designed for 6v6 and that's why it's really compact, but if it was ill-fit for Halloween shenanigans, then why did Valve select it for an event? And yeah, select. This was the first event that uses a pre-existing map. Was Valve just in it for the pun? I adduct? Gag me.
I'll take an awful pun over what they did with the map name the following year. We'll get to it.
Fair. Playing it today, I can at least respect the intent and philosophy of this map. This isn't a turbine situation here, where the entire thing is Choke Point City. But you can't deny, it can encourage some spammy playstyles if you got the opponent battling to get to center point. Ultimately, I think my frustration roots from the fact that it's not a beginner-friendly map, which is what I was on my first go-around.
Aw, did Monoculus blast your ass too hard?
Goodness, you are on the ball today, aren't you, Rabbit?
You have no idea how hard it is to hold back an eyeball joke right now? Anyway, while the Horseman was kind of a glorified stage hazard, Monoculus was more of an actual boss. While his behaviors didn't have a whole lot of variety, he was at least enough of a threat that everyone on the map had to keep an eye out for him. Oh, god damn it.
Monoculus also introduced the Bombanomicon, a minor MacGuffin character? He's one of the rewards if you can escape the island that you get to when you beat Monoculus. He makes your ragdoll explode after you die, and a lot of people use him. I probably should be concerned, but in this case, I'm gonna ignore it.
Scream Fortress 3 was when the Halloween events really started to hit their stride. The full-body costumes unique to each class were a lot more interesting than paper bags. The story behind Demo's missing eye is hilarious, and we got introduced to a character that would add validity to the handwave of "a wizard did it." We'll be seeing more of him in the next one.
Get to the car!
Despite the mean things we're about to say to this particular update, we want to state up front that, at least in its initial release, it was even more improved than Part 3. Seriously, this is the biggest jump in quality between Scream Fortress updates that was ever seen before, and honestly since. The map choice is, in my eyes, better suited for a Halloween bash, it's brimming with atmosphere and cool set pieces. That endless pit is freaking sick, no wonder they keep using it. And the boss is foreshadowing? The best design from a mechanical standpoint, with loads of cool and different attacks that don't insta-kill you for challenge. And he's funny as hell. However, I cannot say this about the current iteration, as a certain overcorrection has made this and the previous bosses the worst part of their maps. Which is why we omitted the Big Eye Boy in the previous segment. We're talking about him now.
If the Halloween gift spawns had a tendency to derail players' priorities, then the bosses got them focused again. At least on being selfish, cutthroat dicks to each other.
I mean, it doesn't take a lot for us to become griefers as it is, Rabbit.
No, but when an update dangles shiny new hats in front of you, only to expect both teams to cooperate in order to obtain them, that expectation quickly reveals itself to be unreasonable. All it takes is a few agents of chaos with a "fuck you, got mine" mentality to make a server into a no-go zone for achievement acquisition.
It was a gamble at the time to find a server where people wanted to work together, made even worse by the fact that Marasmus has one distinct weakness, and thereby one optimal way to defeat him. So add getting people to play a class with a high skill ceiling on top of everything else. This wasn't much of an issue with Horseman since his attack was an insta-kill and he actively hunted everybody. Monoculus is just kind of there and he only fires at you if he sees you. Heh. Marasmus is a bit better, but he's arguably the easiest to avoid, giving you free reign to nail mercs to feed your ego. I mean trained weapon.
Valve would later implement a change to alleviate this frustration. The truce system. When either Monoculus or Marasmus are running amok in their native maps, you can't kill, damage, or even really interact with the enemy team, like at all. You could sap buildings when they first added it, but that's since been fixed.
Now for Monoculus, this isn't so bad. The Eye Guy only spawns 2 to 4 times a round, and Eye Doc matches aren't that long either. No, it's the boy wizard over here that bites it. Lakeside event time went from 3 minutes per team to fucking 7. And it will be a long 14 minutes because Marasmus's respawn timer reduces once he is at a certain level, and these level ups are near unavoidable since it happens every time he dies, which the players will most likely want to do because they can't do anything else. Otherwise, well, this is what I was doing when I finished my Lakeside event contract.
This is what I ended up doing this year.
Guess it beats out edgeguarding people with a cloak and dagger, right?
Yeah, I don't know about that. At least I didn't have to change class.
Yeah, alright. The point being that the truce mechanics makes this the worst Valve-made Scream Fortress by default, and once we get to the end, you will see how that should not be possible.
Hell yeah. Best event, best Halloween event, maybe best update.
Hell yeah indeed, Rabbit. Take every positive aspect from the first 4 updates and mix it all into a milkshake made out of sheep and sex.
It's definitely the best event, but you might want to reconsider that choice of words.
Never!
So this year's event weaves itself into the TF2 lore better than any of the prior ones. If you're watching this video, then you've probably read the TF2 comics, and if you haven't, you really should. After Redmond and Blutarch are murdered by their long-lost brother, their spirits, still spitefully at each other's throats, hire the mercs from beyond the grave to send each other to hell in a payload race. And that's our setting. Hightower, with the Man Brothers' corpses in respective carts.
The biggest achievement of the brothers' lives was getting people to actually want to finish the objective on Hightower. Let that sink in. But that's not even the beginning of what this update has to offer. It also introduced Halloween spells to the game. Not like the ones from last year that added flourishes like color-changing paint and particle effects, which were nice but are now defunct, which makes me too sad to talk about them. But combat ones that let you summon an army of skeletons or eat people in the sky with bats. Spells are a way more interesting combat mechanic than crit candy ever will be. Instead of making random crits somehow worse, spells stand to give you a fighting chance. Before you throw into the lithosphere, if I said bat spell, it's my favorite.
Unlike Crumpkins, the magic spells are my kind of less than predictable shenanigans. Especially that Shadow Leap spell that was used in this map and then never again.
Rabbit, the day they give you that teleport orb as a legit weapon is the day Team Fortress 2 dies. And we have a foot in the grave as it is.
They're fun to use and play around, and even the damage-oriented ones usually aren't enough to kill you on their own.
Oh, you also have the Skeleton King. He'll spawn at the witching hour, where this spooky bridge appears that leads to a stronger tier of spells. While Halloween gifts started spawning individually since Scream Fortress 4, this invokes that rat race mentality in a good way now. Seeing people scramble their way towards that narrow bridge, only to get slammed by rockets and fireballs, people writing death at the exit, or even sticking around in that barren spot waiting for the next witching hour, it can mix things up a hell of a lot, given how grindy Hightower can get near the end.
When we do get to the end of the round, Crispy's punished for his presumably Welsh roots and is promptly sent to hell. And as for me, well, I know what I did.
Yeah, the game sorta goes into this deathmatch mode where both teams go for the HEY!
This is fun for sure, taking the loot islands from the previous updates and making it an outright competition. It does kind of undermine the round you just played, since the winning team doesn't really get any advantage. But it's Hightower, it didn't really matter anyway.
I think my favorite memory from this update was the wing gifts themselves. Unlike last year, they spawned in abundance here, and yes, you didn't have to fight anyone for them. It helped that Hightower only had a handful of spawns for them, so they were quick and easy rewards. I think 2/3 of my backpack came from these presents, though this generosity would end up contextualizing the biggest misstep Scream Fortress has had so far. Damn it, I kinda wish we could just end the video right here. On a high point, you know?
Come on, let's get this over with. We gotta face the carnival music.
Alright. Going to cut SF6 a little bit of a break here. Its initial release got a lot of flack, not so much for its execution, or its map selection, or gimmicks. Those were more the cherry on top of a sewer sundae that was how the new items were distributed.
Yeah, I'm willing to forgive some of this update's shortcomings, since the worst one by far is no longer in the game. The initial release changed up the way they gave out Halloween cosmetics. You got one cauldron containing 3 items when starting up the game, and you got another cauldron with another 3 items once you got enough achievements. That was 6 items out of the 40 plus that they added this year. Sure, you could buy those items in the store, which is cool for the community members who created them, but with the Halloween restriction in place, that was a very limited market. Needless to say, this made a lot of people upset, coming off of several years where they were giving out these things like candy.
The team could probably tell this backlash was coming, and posted this blog post, yeah, remember these, trying to get ahead of the controversy. It didn't work. This new fail system was so reviled it warped the rest of the update around it. Which is unfair since this one issue was fixed indefinitely with Mirage missions. Which we're not talking about today. So how does the rest of the carnival hold up? Well, it certainly feels cheap. Look, there was a reason Doomsday was a boring map and Special Delivery was not expanded upon as a game mode. It's pretty dull in both cases.
I know I said I'm willing to forgive some of this update's shortcomings, but it really doesn't help that Special Delivery is such an underwhelming game mode in the first place. One Flag, CTF, is fine conceptually, but to then have to ride a lift with it after getting it through the rest of the map's hotly contested areas, it feels like whether or not you succeed in that trip is decided before it even starts.
At least the winning team gets something for their efforts in the bumper car minigames that everyone loves. Ever wanted to play Rocket League but with no physics? Ever wanted to slowly turn in place to politely nudge people into the gaping maw of a purple fuck-off beast? Do you wanna collect ducks?
Bonus ducks!
Well, if not, then too bad. These games can take way too long and don't warrant their existence very well. At least the Hell segment from the last year played into the core gameplay and was quick. Little to no cosmetics, and all we get to cope is rubber ducks that got way too overexposed in the next major update? Yeah, it was pretty lame. A pitiful way to close out the Valve era of Scream Fortress. I remember vividly how me and Carrot got our second cauldrons and fucked off right to Hell Tower for the rest of the event. They aren't as bad now. Doomsday itself is far from the worst map in the game, and I do enjoy the giant gavel that launches people into the air. And some of the set dressings on the map are pretty nice, even though they would go on to be used way too much in the community Halloween events. It is a shame that this map had to be swept away in a controversy, but hey, one of these maps had to be the worst, right? Doesn't make it terrible, by no stretch of the imagination.
It's easy to say Scream Fortress is the highlight of TF2 when it seems to be the only update we ever get anymore. But I hope we've pointed out that the event was a good bit of fun even when the TF2 team was no stranger to new content. It was a chance for the devs and players alike to unwind a bit, cosmetics and maps that could bend the rules of the game's aesthetic, and for the most part, more generosity than we would see on Smissmas. Even if we never see a new major update for this game again, I know we'll always look forward to Scream Fortress each year, whatever community maps and items come with it. Wait, why am I reading this? This is Crispy's school. Where is...
Happy Halloween!